I want to do a video where I give you some sense of what the AP Calculus exam is like. Because there are going to be a couple things that we start doing this week, next week or so. And I want you to be able to put all of this into context. So when you take the AP Calculus exam, it's the entire test is about 3 hours and 15 minutes long. There's a break in the middle of it, which isn't part of that time. And the test is broken into four different sections. So just like the Regents exam, there's a part where you're doing multiple choice and a part where you're doing free response, where you're going to be showing your work, writing a few sentences, explaining, the result and what that means in the real world situation. Um, and so one of the things we're going to be doing is we're going to start practicing with seeing what those free response questions are like. When you see an entire free response question, it's usually talking about some situation. They'll give you a function or two, maybe they'll give you a table or a graph. And then associated with that is going to be 3 or 4 different parts of a question. And those parts can be ranging all over calculus. Um, Every one of those free response questions is worth a total of 9 points, but each one of those sections might be broken up into 1 or 2 or 3 points. So, what you'll need to be good at doing when you're looking at one of these questions is understanding the situation. And then for each one of the 4 questions, really need to focus in on what the question is asking you, because you might find that you don't remember how to do part 1 of a question, but you do know how to do parts 2, 3, and 4. So being able to read the questions carefully and understand what part of calculus they're being pulled out of is an important skill that we're going to work on. And what we're going to start doing is we're going to start with the parts of questions that obviously that we've studied up to this point. So I'm going to start introducing questions that are going to talk about limits and continuity. As we start to get better with derivatives, I'll start peppering in some derivative questions. But you're not going to see all 4 sections of a problem yet, because usually, there's an integration question or two in there. If you're interested in seeing an entire question just to see what a whole question looks like, let me know and I can provide that to you. But you'll see each week I'm going to give us 1 or 2 of these little nuggets of questions that you are capable of doing. So I want you to focus in um, on making sure that you're reading the question and answering it as completely as possible. So there might be something like a 2-point question. First of all, you'll never know that a section is worth 2 points. But if a question is worth 2 points, it might be broken down into 1 point for giving the correct answer, and the second for explaining why, what leads you to that answer. It's a lot like the Regents exam, and just like we're having the Regents students do the same thing this year. So we're going to be getting a lot of practice with these short response questions, so that you're dialing in as many of the points as you can when you get to the AP exam itself in May. The other thing, I said there were 4 parts, and there's the multiple choice question and the free response section. In each one of those 2 parts, they get broken in half. One part where you get to use the graphing calculator, and one part where you don't get to use the graphing calculator. It's actually not broken in half. It's actually, in each one of those sections, 2/3 of the questions are going to be no calculator, and 1/3 are going to be with a calculator. Um, you've probably noticed, I don't know if you've noticed yet, that we haven't done any work with the graphing calculators yet. It's because calculus is very largely something that you can learn to do without calculators. Lots and lots of college courses do calculus with no calculators at all. The reason that the AP exam does, and I kind of respect this decision, is that they want to give you some real world functions where the formulas are, and the functions they're dealing with are kind of ugly, and finding a derivative or finding an integral would be difficult or impossible. And so having the calculator run the numbers really quickly and calculate those things for you gives you more of a feel of how real world calculus probably works, where you're not, necessarily just doing things in your head. But largely, calculus is something where you're building up comprehension skills. So the other change that I want to announce is that everybody who's taking calculus is going to have a copy of the Inspire calculator to take home. Well, those of you who are at home will obviously be using it at home. The rest of you will have, a calculator that you can carry back and forth with you. We're not going to be using it very often. So, I mean, you can do what you want with it. I'm not sure if there's some sort of contract signing that's going to be part of it yet. The reason I'm not handing these out quite yet is that you're going to need charging cables for this because, we don't have we're doing it with the banks of calculators that we plug in. And so we need to get a bunch of USB cables for you to do these plugging in. They've been ordered, they're on their way. Once that happens, I don't know how I'm going to get them out to you. I might just hop in my car and drive around town. And those of you who are studying virtually will just get a copy of it. We'll just get the calculator with the cable on it. And you'll definitely need to return that at the end of the year because this is ours. And it says school property on it. So, you'd feel like a thief the rest of your life. And it's not the most important calculator in the world. You wouldn't use a calculator like this in college. So those are the two big things that are happening. Starting to work on the free response questions and expecting that a calculator will show up, and I will, at the right time, give you a sense of how to use these to solve problems. And we'll start seeing some problems where we'll get to use them eventually. But the other part of this is I wanted you to have a sense of what the AP exam is like. So we're going to be doing most work without calculators, a little work with calculators, and thinking about both multiple choice and free response questions, because those are all things that are going to be covered on the test.